Ethics of the Metaphysician, page 50. That which comes next in Spinoza's intellectual structure, the reader will find concentrated in the pages of the present book. It is the world of his real subject, which is called Ethica, and thus must deal with moral facts and with values and their special laws, with ethical life and action. In actuality, the ethical thinker begins with a particular impediment. Like any natural scientist, he does not acknowledge good and evil as such, no more does the whole realm of aesthetic and moral values. No more does he the whole realm of aesthetic and moral values. We soon discover that it is a long road from such a transfer of moral values into the realm of mere human concepts, to the reasoned justification of ethical action. But the man with whom we are dealing was never for the easy way, and he never made things easy for himself, either in life or in thought. How important to him, on the other hand, this part of the philosophical thinking and his explaining was, anyone with ears can hear plainly from the new tone with which he now sets forth his perceptions. Underneath his cool delivery is a rushing stream of restrained passion, the passion of a great stylist. Suddenly it is not mathematics and logic that sets the tone, but the urgent and convinced wish of a teacher and guide toward right life. And this road he himself now pursues by the following method. First, he observes the nature of man, the fundamental facts of the world of impulse, as a natural scientist finds them. Then he draws the conclusions, visible to everyone, that result for the ordinary life of the uninstructed, and above these he raises the guiding thoughts that lead, according to his conviction, out of subjugation to desires and their satisfaction toward the superiority of the true emancipated mind. But this is the true Spinozism, teaching freedom and the happiness of renunciation, that stable happiness which he never grows tired of praising, as he never tires of being a living example of it. He sees man, that modus, that morphological phenomenon, as a leaf on the mighty tree of the universe, moved by the same original impulse as namely, to persist in being. If that impulse is obstructed, suffering and grief are the result. If the obstruction is thrown aside, overcome by the original impulse, then the man is filled with joy. The oscillation between these two poles produces emotions, passions, instincts, but also the strength to cope with them. Thus there arises between love and hatred a field of tension in which everything preservative and useful is desired, while that which threatens our existence keeps tending to be shoved aside. Hence to him that man is particularly virtuous who tries and is able to preserve his being, while he who neglects this advantage is damned to impotence. For in God the tendency toward endless being is completely powerful, and non-being is vanquished. Therefore to act absolutely through virtue means to act under the guidance of reason, and thus to preserve one's life and one's being. But everything for which one strives through reason is simply knowledge, and so far as it makes use of its reason, the soul considers useful only what leads to knowledge. Thus the soul's highest good is the knowledge of God, and its highest virtue to perceive God, which means to agree with our own nature. The reader can see for himself how Spinoza develops from this the whole spectrum of human impulses, and how he shows to the creature pulled hither and thither the way to contentment, to that floating equilibrium of sight subspecie aeternitas, in the light of eternity, which is all that man can attain. He who truly sees God, that is the exalted necessity of every happening in the universe, but cannot but love him, just as God must love himself, because he is constantly aware of his own being. In the white heat of this light, the deceptions of our passions evaporate, fighting our way through it. Being brave in the intellectual sense leads to that high felicity, the amor di, in which the highest virtue is spontaneously generated, and in it too the modest man releases himself for freedom, the only immortality that is vouchsafed him. If the way which I have pointed out as leading to this result seems exceedingly hard, the Ethics concludes with hidden pathos. It may nevertheless be discovered, needs must it be hard, since it is so seldom found. How would it be possible if salvation were ready to our hand, and could without great labor be found, and it should be by almost all men neglected? But all things excellent are as difficult as they are rare. For to Spinoza, that man is free who has surrendered himself to reason through absorption in stout-hearted thinking and deduction, who is capable of opposing to darkening passions the calm countenance of his soul, of seeing through the wandering and confusing character of his affections, and of joining actively in affirming and denying in the acts and omissions of the fighters for the truth. This is the fruit of the wisdom of Baruch Spinoza as it appears in his books and by the pure life of him who thought it. When we read that the free will of man is to be traced back to the ignorance of causes which determine it, and that real freedom arises rather in the measure in which God frees himself of his passions, to unite himself with God by spiritual submersion and contemplation. We see as if though a rising mist the faint smile and melancholy eyes of that lonely man who went out from the Portuguese emigration of Amsterdam Jewry to radiate eternal light in the pantheon of human wisdom and superiority.